Yeah, let's do it. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for a Lutz webinar. We really do appreciate you being here today. We have a lot to get into, a lot to cover. I know everybody's busy, so we really sincerely appreciate you being here because without you, there are no webinars. So we want to continue doing these and sharing our knowledge. So, what we want to do today is introduce you to some enhancements that we've seen across Microsoft 365 and Copilot specifically that are starting to add some real value to our clients. And I think that's a really important distinction I want to make because we see a lot of AI in the news and movies everywhere, and it gets really hard to distinguish what is something that is actually useful versus something that's just an interesting technology. So we hope to do that here with you today. My name is Herman Agraz. I'm an account manager with Lutz Tech. I've been with Lutz for 3 years now, and what I spend a lot of my time doing is meeting with business owners, IT folks, trying to figure out business challenges and ways technology can make their lives a little bit easier. While my partner Ryan here gets a little bit deeper into that AI conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Herman. My name's Ryan Wade. I'm a director with Lutz Technology. I've been with Lutz for about 10 years now, helping a lot of our clients really get more out of their software, whether or not that's enhancing or modernizing or supporting. Over the last couple of years in particular, have really leaned in on helping our clients leverage tools in the AI world. And we're going to be talking a lot about Copilot here today. So excited to show you more of how you can use those tools to get more out of the products that your team is using every day.
Awesome. So today we're going to be focusing less on the buzz around AI and more on Microsoft Copilot specifically. So we will do an overview of Copilot, what it is, and how it interacts with your Microsoft 365 environment. We'll also get into some live demonstrations that Ryan will do for us. And then we'll get into some considerations that we recommend for your organization before rolling out Copilot to everybody on the team. So we will start with just Copilot for Microsoft 365. So when I say Microsoft 365, you probably immediately are thinking Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, any of those just classic Office applications. Behind those is OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint, where your data actually lives, where it's actually stored, and what really connects everything. Well, one thing that we want to emphasize is that historically, this has been the glue for Microsoft 365, all of these products. But where we've seen the biggest shift from Microsoft recently is all of their innovation and investment is going into Microsoft Copilot. So the idea is pretty simple with Copilot. What they're wanting us to do is make it so instead of you needing to learn all of these clicks and all of these different applications, you're able to just tell Copilot what you want to accomplish, and it does it for you. So, all of these Microsoft 365 applications, you're probably using by having a Microsoft business or enterprise license. With that license is included some Copilot functionalities that you may or may not know that you have access to, and that's what we want to highlight for you here today. Before we jump into the demos, we want to share a quick framework of some AI readiness assessment that we've helped our clients with in the past.
So as Herman explained, Microsoft Copilot is really their AI technology, their generative AI technology. And so whenever you're looking at, is this right for our team members, and also in planning, where are we today and where do we want to be? It can seem overly complex and there's a lot of moving parts. So we've used this framework and, kind of as a common language to help you kind of determine where you are, your business is, and focus those efforts in the right areas when it comes to utilizing tools like Copilot. So the first level is what we call personal productivity. And personal productivity is using a tool like Copilot to be more productive and efficient in the way that you're operating today. And so you can see kind of the graph here. We're ultimately, when we're deciding and using these technologies, what is the return on investment? Personal productivity is little investment in terms of effort and time and just learning how to use these tools, but it can, start to automate some of those mundane tasks that you have to do every day. The next level up is what we call team productivity. And team productivity is when we're taking those tools and we're giving it access to more data that allows it to do more tasks for us. But with that, there can be investment in licensing that we'll get into here in a little bit. In addition, there's change management. We have to learn how to use these tools in our daily workflow. And there's some security and governance things that we'll talk about here later on today. The third layer is what we call transformed work. And transformed work is really when we're starting to talk about automating processes end to end using things like Copilot Cowork or some things called custom agents. We're not going to be focusing time on that today. And quite honestly, in all the businesses that we work with, very few have really started to leverage those tools on a day-to-day basis to start automating their work from end to end. So if you're a business that's just saying, hey, we're just getting started, you're not alone. Yeah, we're really going to be focusing in on these areas of personal productivity and team productivity because that is where you're going to be able to get a lot out of more of your Microsoft 360 products that you use using some of the licensing that you may already have, or consider adding on some of the premium add-ons that we'll be explaining more about as we get through the presentation today.
So with Copilot specifically, we want to touch on the two versions and then some more advanced use of Copilot. So the two versions of Copilot, Copilot Basic. This is what I mentioned is included with your Microsoft 365 business or enterprise level license. So if you've heard of Microsoft Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium, that type of licensing includes this Copilot Basic function. And with Copilot Basic, I want you to think about it as if it were a new employee. So a new employee, you'll provide with materials and a task. They'll go out and do that task with the materials that you've given them and accomplish it for you. Copilot Premium, I want you to think about as a more executive assistant. This is a paid add-on license from Microsoft. With the executive assistant, you just tell them what you want to accomplish. So instead of you giving them the materials, you just say, hey, do this for me. They know where everything is. They know how you like things done, and they'll accomplish that task in your desired manner.
Yeah, I would say again that executive assistant knows how you work. They're using all their knowledge and their experience, and they get better and better over time. That new employee is kind of starting fresh. They're only bringing to the table what they have available from their past experiences. Really, Copilot Basic is using information on the web to accomplish this task, where Premium has the luxury of knowing how you work and getting to know your business over time. So we think that analogy kind of helps you frame up the differences between the Copilot options. The third one here, again, we had talked about transformed work with what they call Copilot Cowork or automation. We think of that as more of a chief of staff that has a team members that can accomplish more work for you. They can do a lot more because they can start to break down and delegate work, and they're kind of like digital workers. The reason we wanted to call that out is even over the last month, Microsoft has changed their pricing when it comes to those custom agents and Cowork, where that is not included in the premium add-on Copilot license. Cowork it's kind of pay as you go from what they call Microsoft credits. That in of itself is going to be its own webinar. We just wanted to call that out because there has been some confusion on, what's included in the premium add-on and what is this additional cost. So we're going to really focus in on basic and premium here today.
Yeah, we can go for an hour on Cowork and agents, so we'll stick to this.
So with that framing of kind of what is Microsoft Copilot, how does it work with in the apps that we use every day? It's one thing for us to kind of talk to you about it. It's another thing for us to actually show it in action. So we wanted to spend much more time kind of talking, showing you live use cases and allowing you to ask questions as we go that we hope to be able to answer as many as we can. But I think that, I did just feel it's a lot more relevant when you can see it in action. So we prepared some live demonstrations for you. One thing in doing a live demonstration with AI that I've learned over time, we never know what to expect. So there may be some things we have to work through. But again, I think there's benefit in showing how we're utilizing these tools. So we've organized this in a couple of different use cases. We know many of you on the call kind of come from the financial or accounting areas of your business. So we are going to focus in on some of those finance use cases. So the first use case is, we're an accounting team and we have a budget document or a budget spreadsheet that we want to be able to analyze because we owe the analysis to our leadership team. And so we're going to take an Excel document, do some analysis, create a memo from that, and then ultimately we need to prepare our email and get that out to the leadership team. So that is the first use case we're going to walk through. The second one is we're going to spend, some time trying to make our teams better in the way that they work. So as a part of our accounting team, we had a couple of team members that are reviewing our quality control of our invoicing process and think it could become better. So we're going to take that experience that they have, put that into kind of a standard operating procedure document, and then move that to a training document with a PowerPoint that we can roll out across our team. And then finally do some light automation with an agent and show you a little bit about what's possible in some light automation with Copilot agents. So those are the things that we're going to walk through. I'm going to start with a demonstration of the first use case, but if you have questions as we go, please feel free. We're going to take a little break between the two use cases to give you a little bit of time and answer the questions as they come through. So with this, I'm going to kind of jump out here to my prepared demonstrations. So before we get started, I did want to show you just to show you the office.com website. So I know in working with many of our businesses, a lot of people use the desktop applications, and you probably felt that Microsoft is trying to push you to the browser versions more and more. And there's a reason why for that, because ultimately most of the enhancements are able to be pushed out sooner to the web, and it gives them more ability to do that. So what I'm doing is showing you the office.com website. This is really the hub of all of your Microsoft 365 products. And when you sign in with your login to office.com, this is the site that you'll see. In the upper left-hand side here, you'll see there's what they call a waffle button. Really, all that is that's the hub that I was talking about before. It's where we can access all of our Microsoft 365 products in the browser. And so I just wanted to call that out. That's probably an underutilized navigation tool, but it's on the office.com up here in the upper left-hand corner. We'll be showing more of that as we go. But you can see here the main focus is really around Copilot. One of the things you may be asking yourself as we explain basic versus premium is, what do I have today? If you go to office.com, this is a great place to check it out and an easy place. If you see here down in the lower left-hand side here, this user, it would say your name. And then underneath it will say Microsoft 365 Copilot Basic or Premium. That is a good place for you to check out what license that you have today. We're going to be talking more about those differences as we get through the demonstrations about, what can I do with basic and what can I do with premium. But wanted to show you kind of that here because it is, again, that central hub. But starting with that use case, I prepared here just a little bit and just moving some screens around here so I can see my full screen. I prepared, our report. And so this is the report that we have for our budget. And one of the things that you'll see here is, and sorry about just getting some of those things out of the way, most businesses that we work with never really have clean data that comes out of a system. And so we do have our budget report, but you can see there's a lot of different areas where there's inconsistency in formatting and even some broken formulas. So as a part of doing our analysis, obviously we want to clean that up. This is a perfect use case for Microsoft Copilot to help us in this task. So in the bottom right-hand side here, you'll see this Copilot logo. And so if you click on that button, it's going to open up Copilot in Excel. And so the first thing that I want to be able to do here is just say in just my comment, I don't have to know exactly how to say it. I'm just going to say, help me clean up this data. And I'm going to go ahead and run this prompt by hitting enter or selecting the button. And so this does take a little bit of time here, but it's going to start the process of going through Excel, analyzing the data and kind of coming up with a plan on how to clean it up. And so we're going to just see how far this goes. I do have a plan if it takes a little bit of time. I would say in Excel, as you would expect, is going through a lot of data. So it does take a little bit of time, but it's much faster than me having to go through and run formulas to clean this up. So you can see here, it's kind of showing its process. It's inspecting it, and it'll give us the plan of attack as it goes here. So I did want to, I'm going to go ahead and let that run here, but I wanted to show you while it goes that we have a clean set of data that we can start with. And so what I've done is I'm going to, 1 second here. Sorry, I just need to grab my prompt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to analyze the budget variance by department and month. I want it to identify the main drivers of our overrun and distinguish kind of the recurring from September specific issues and recommend actions. So I went ahead and ran that prompt, and I can actually show you that here. And so after running that prompt, and it probably took 3 minutes or 4 minutes or so, but it will show you kind of its thought process and what it found here. So, it analyzed the information and then it came up with its recommendations. And so it can show you how it can analyze data, much faster than I'd be able to do on my own. But I also asked it to create a new tab for me and create me a dashboard that helps me better understand how it analyzed that data. And so this took a little bit more time. I'd probably say this took anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to run this through. But this gives you an example of the dashboard that it was able to create for me by just using that prompt to analyze this data and then create a dashboard for me in a new tab. So it shows me my overrun across the different departments and some of the key findings that it had in its action items. So it's recommending operations reset, a September validation, and an early warning control process, and some additional narrative kind of down below. So that just gives me additional data to analyze so that I can better, save some time. I would say through all of this with use of any AI tools, ultimately it is on me to validate those numbers in using these tools, but this gave me a heck of a good start. So now that I have that analysis completed, and let me see here, I will come back to the cleanup data. You can almost trust me that it is a really good tool to do that. It just takes a little bit more time than we have today. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Word. So I am in Word through the browser version here, and I've done the same process where there's the Copilot button in the lower right-hand side that I've clicked on, and I've just prepared a prompt here. I said, turn the budget variance Excel spreadsheet into a one-page memo for leadership. Which departments are over budget by how much, and what should we do next? And so I'm going to go ahead and run that prompt. Because we've done the analysis, this one hopefully is a little bit faster to run, and we can kind of show it live in action here. So it is creating that memo for our leadership team as we go. So it's saying, our spend was 443,000 compared to that 424,000 and the 19,000 net overrun. And it's providing kind of an executive spreadsheet table here as well. And this is actually what I was hoping for, because we did ask, we would like to get this to a one-page document. So one of the things I wanted to call out here, I'm going to save this by clicking the done button, is I really want to get this to one page. And just like that new employee, if it's not giving it back to you in the format that you want, all you have to do is give it feedback. So I'm going to say, please redo this so that it is only one page. And so with that, it's going to go through and do the same process, but analyze the formatting to see if it can get it to one page. So you kind of see that live in action here, and I'll just give that a second to make sure that it comes out as expected.
And we know how easy they make it to modify tables in Word. So
Yeah, so if you're struggling with formatting, this is a great tool to come to say, hey, can you clean this up or reformat this? And so, yes, it did get it down to one page. The reason I like when you showing you that you have to give it feedback to get the format that you want is that is how you get to know how to use these AI technology. Is just tell it when it's wrong. And that could happen to you. It very likely will happen to you. Don't get frustrated and stop. Just give it the feedback that you want until it gets the format that you're looking for. So now that we have our memo, the last thing that we need to do as a part of our workflow here is we need to take that memo and create, the email that we need to send to our leadership team. So now what I've done is I've come into our email account or our Outlook online, and again, there's the Copilot button, and once you click that Copilot pane is going to come out. And so I've just prepared here the prompt, which is saying, draft me an email to my leadership team from the memo attached. Keep it to 3 sentences with bullet point listings of the 3 top actions. So right now you can see I've attached the memo, but I did want to show you how you do that. So let me go ahead and I'm going to delete this here. There's a couple of ways that they allow you to attach that. One is this plus icon. You can come in here and either upload a document or you can add your work content. And then when you do that, you can search for the file that you have here. So this is our Q3 budget variance memo. So that is attaching that to the Copilot prompt. And so I'm going to go ahead and run that and just kind of show you that live in action here. And I think a very basic use case of Copilot is going to be, help me draft this email, or I wrote this email and help me clean it up or make it more professional or concise. This is kind of that next level where I'm actually having it use the information from documents or spreadsheets to come up with the email. So this is our leadership team email here. It's including some of the information that it's cited from the spreadsheet and some of those action items that we had talked about. Now it's doing it in the Copilot prompt itself. And so it's giving me a chance to review that and see if if I want to make any changes. Again, if I wanted it to make it shorter or longer or more information, I just ask it to do that. But now this looks pretty good to me. So let's see here. And wouldn't you know it, from a live demonstration, that I want to send this. Please create the draft. One of the buttons that shows up 99% of the times did not show up in that prompt. So I'm just giving it feedback here and see if my button comes up here. Okay, this is what I was expecting. So after the draft of the email that it produced, there's an edit and send button. And so by selecting that, now it's going to create, as we would expect, an email that I need to put who I want to send the email to, but it's included everything that we've produced using Copilot here within the email, and it's ready to go. So this is where we wanted to take a minute because we've shown a lot, and there may be some questions that are kind of coming up in mind, either through some of the things that we had talked about before in what Copilot is and the different licensing that we'll get more to as we go. But then we showed you a lot between Office.com, Excel, Word, and Outlook. So if there are any questions, we're going to take a pause. We're also going to, at this moment, for any of those that are looking for continuing education credits, there will be a poll that pops up. So for you that are relevant, that are looking for that, just say yes, you're still listening. And for those that are not, just go ahead and hit yes, and that will take you past the screen.
Hosting panels cannot vote.
Okay.
And as Ryan touched on earlier, ultimately, you as the user are responsible for the numbers in the data that is produced from Copilot or any other AI platform. So always validate. We've saved a lot of time from drafting emails and editing data. Let's use that time to validate the data and make sure everything is accurate.
So there are some questions that are coming in here. So let me go ahead and see if there's some that we can hit now or if we plan to hit some of this later on. So some of the questions that have come in are in terms of the cost of the different licensing. We will plan on hitting that as we go. There's other questions in terms of, comparing Microsoft Copilot to Claude or ChatGPT. There are some differences in terms of its capability, but I'd say, we do help clients with Claude and ChatGPT, so there are some definite similarities and differences. Happy to follow up on some of those after this webinar. So there's a question on what are we using, basic or premium features here? And thank you for asking. It validates that we do have a slide that's going to cover that, to call out what features are basic and what are premium as we get through our use cases here. In terms of, are there a limited number of questions that you can ask? I wouldn't say there's a number of questions. Microsoft is, with their basic licensing, I would say right now it's what they call let me back up. So basic is not going to have the same performance and quality as premium, but there hasn't been a limit in terms of how many prompts that you can provide. It's more of a limitation on what it can do for you. And the quality is going to be different, because basic is just using all of its knowledge of the web, versus premium is using the information it knows about the data about you and your business. But we haven't seen them stopping the number of questions or prompts that you can do. So there was some questions about the prompts that we provided. Maybe that's something that we can follow up with to give you some examples of those prompts to probably kind of spur some ideas here. And just scrolling through here for a second. So there was a question about, our comfort level in the data that it has access to, and that it won't be, let's say Microsoft won't use it to train its AI models. I would say Microsoft has really positioned itself in trust of the data itself, that it's the same trust that you have in using Microsoft 365 that you should have in using Copilot. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. They call it their enterprise data protection. It's the same agreement that you have, that they won't use your spreadsheets or Word documents or files in their they're not going to access your data on their benefit. They're really, at least everything that we've seen in the research we've done, we feel pretty comfortable that they're following through on their promise and their agreements that they have in place. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep moving on. We really appreciate the questions. I'm going to come back to more of these questions as we go, and just know if there are additional questions that we don't get to, we commit to getting back to you with, our perspective on what's coming, but we will hit more questions as we go here. So let me give you the second use case. So this second use case example is, we want to take that experience that our accounting team members have. We want to put it into a process through a standard operating procedure. We want to train our team members, and we want to start some light automation. So we're going to kind of show that in action through Microsoft 365 utilizing Copilot. So first of all, and this was hard to demonstrate because we have multiple meetings going on here, but imagine that our two team members, and I'm trying to remember their names. I'll get to their names in a second here. But imagine that they just had a meeting and they recorded that meeting utilizing Teams. This would be a premium feature. But if you are in a Teams meeting, in the upper right-hand corner, there's 3 dots. And if you hit that, there's a record option. And so once you record a meeting, you can decide just to take transcripts of the audio, or if you want a video recording as well. If you have premium, I highly recommend it. And Herman, I think you use it every single day.
I use it. If you've been on a client meeting with me, I use that transcription button. It helps me with notes, follow-ups. It's made my life so much easier, and a ton of value there.
It's extremely valuable. So I wanted to at least mention that. So once you record the meeting and you end it, basically what it produces is what they call a recap. And this is just a quick example of that, where I went to the meeting and it says view recap. And then I'm able to kind of see all the different summary notes, things of that nature of what we talked about. But I can also come in here and I can download the transcripts. So imagine that we've done that as a part of our meeting. We've downloaded the transcript here. And Marcus and Dana, I'd forgotten their names. Marcus and Dana met, and basically they just talked through the best practices and what they would want in a standard procedure for the team, just evaluating the quality control of the invoicing review process. So we have the meeting notes here, and basically what we would do with the prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that prompt from my other screen, is we say, use the meeting transcript to build a step-by-step standard operating procedure. I want to include roles, the number of steps, call out any decision points or exceptions made. And again, all I've done is I've referenced the transcript file like we showed before. And so I'm hopeful that this will run fairly quickly. But what it's going to do is start that process of just creating that standard operating procedure document. And I'd say this is going to be so powerful if you start this, because these AI tools, yes, they're extremely valuable if they're connected to your data. They're even more valuable when you have your processes documented, because that's additional context that can use to start automating processes and then also provide you better quality output. So this standard operating procedure, we took it from something we do by muscle memory, and now we have a process documented. And so this is just kind of showing the steps in the process and the procedure, the things that we've asked for. And again, just like anything else, the time saved in formatting and putting that meeting into a document, I need to review this and feel comfortable with it. So now that I have those standard operating procedures, and I see that there's questions, we'll definitely get to more of those as we go here. I want to take that and produce something I can train my team members on. So now I'm coming to PowerPoint. And PowerPoint has the same Copilot button that I've selected. And I'm just prompting it to say, create me a presentation about those standard operating procedures. I want to keep it to 3 to 5 slides and to highlight the process. And so a couple things here, because I know there's questions about, and we'll get to it more here, but what's included in Copilot Basic versus Premium. So in Basic, I can do the same process where I can ask it this to create a PowerPoint presentation for me. Just know it's going to be very basic. It's going to maybe save you some time, but it's going to be something you would definitely only want to use internally and probably would make your marketing department plug their nose. In the premium offering, what it allows you to do, and I wanted to show this in action here, is they're able to do what they call a brand kit. And so what I've done here, I'm actually in office.com. Let me go back to the home page here to show you this in action. Oops. So in office.com, and this is especially relevant for you marketing folks out there, I'm going to what they call Copilot Create. And so under this, there's a More feature. And if I scroll down here, there's a thing called Brand Kits. This was a highly requested feature for PowerPoint for a long time. In creating a brand kit, I'm able to come out here and upload our brand guidelines. And so they use Copilot to go through your brand guidelines and pull out things like your colors, your fonts, images, icons, some of your brand voice, all of that information. They're able to pull into what they call a brand kit. And I wanted to show you, kind of a completed version. So I was able to create a basic version of the Lutz brand kit just to show you some of the things that it pulls out. So I did upload better quality logos. So you can, not just from your brand guidelines, but attach additional logos. And then I came in here and I added in some of our templates that we use for letterhead, memos, agendas, and yes, our PowerPoint presentation. So this just shows you a little bit about some of our guidelines to use this as a use case. But let me show you kind of like a cooking show. I've already baked the cake that we just made together and show you the example of what it did with the prompt that I provided and I showed you earlier. This is showing you using our brand template, the output of it using that standard operating procedure and created a much more professional PowerPoint, uh, in action. Again, if you've tried this in the past, this has come leaps and bounds better, even over the last 3 to 6 months alone. So one of the things, like I think is a big difference between the basic Copilot license and a premium is you're able to create these brand kits and utilize them for PowerPoint. Now, I'd also say, because I have some of my marketing team here with me, you can see it's not perfect. You can see some of this is off and it needs to be corrected, especially the overlaid text down below. But I've saved a lot of time getting it into this format. And so now it's up to me to make sure that I review this and clean it up, but it probably saved me 80, 90% of my time that I can reinvest back into making sure the information's right and the formatting is what I would expect. So the last part of this workflow that we wanted to show is the dream for all of us is, okay, can I start doing some automation around the standard operating procedures? And the answer is yes. So in office.com, I'm going to show you a feature they call agents. And we do not have enough time to get into all the different types of agents and things of that nature. But I wanted to show you a very basic agent that me as an individual created for my own purpose for personal productivity. So I've created an agent. I'm going to show you it in action. So if there are questions, I can show you what's behind an agent. But for the demonstration purpose, just understand I I attached our standard operating procedure that you just showed and basically gave it instructions that says, I want you to help me do an initial review using our standard operating procedures. And so from that, now it's trained to say, hey, if I attach an invoice, I have an example of, an example from Summit Office Supplies. It's just a PDF. And I'll even pull up that PDF just to show you this mock data that we created. Let me close that out. I'm going to go ahead and have it run the process. And so it's using that invoice and it's starting to kind of work through all of the different steps that we have this agent trained on. So this agent is doing its review and it's saying, hey, we're not ready to pay here. And then it's gave me some of the key findings. And some of those key findings are, looks like the invoice to PO, there's an exception there. They don't match. It looks like there's a variance review here. So the variance is above 5%, which is acquiring an additional approval. There's not a three-way match, and there's not the payment readiness. So this can just kind of give you an example of some things we're even doing here at Lutz is you can use these agents to do that first review for you to just save you a little bit of time. Now, I'm still expected as the expert to review the process and make sure that that information is correct. But you can imagine that if you have, especially early team members that don't have as much experience as you do, giving them access to these agents can help improve the quality as they get it to you for your final sign off. That's really where you can save quite a bit of time.
In this agent feature, it's a premium feature, obviously, but is it included with your premium license or is there additional cost to doing what you just did?
Everything that I just showed is included in the premium offering or the premium add-on Copilot offering. Now, when I want to start rolling that out to more team members, now you're starting to talk about we probably should do a review for you to kind of talk about the right strategy. But the agent that I showed is something I'm creating for my own purpose, and that is included in that premium add-on. It is not included in basic. And I know that's probably a lot of the questions. Believe me, Herman and I had a monumental task to try to simplify all this down. So we're doing our best to show you what's possible today and answer some of your questions. But there's additional questions that you'll have and considerations that we're going to be hitting as we go into the next section of our presentation. So this is a good moment here, and I know some of you had some questions here. So I'm just reading some of those, so just give me just a second here. Uh, there was a question about the quality of the prompts that you use. And so this may be a good opportunity for me to show you some of the agents that you get access to with Copilot Premium and ones that Microsoft created. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new chat here. And there is an agent they call the prompt coach. And so the prompt coach is a way I can say, I can put in a prompt. So I want to clean up data in my Excel spreadsheet. And I can even attach the Excel spreadsheet. And I'm not going to show this all the way through. I just wanted to give you an example of a tool Microsoft provides to improve the quality of your prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and just attach that budget memo. And you can use this in the output of it. And I attached the wrong document. Give me just a second here. It's hard for me to see this on this screen. Help me with the best prompt. So what it will do is kind of analyze, ask me questions so I can get a better prompt. And so it's a good way for you to kind of learn best practices on prompting, and it will give you some examples of some prompts that you can use. So yes, the meeting recording will be shared.
It'll be published on the Let's website, so that'll be out there.
And sorry, it sounds like maybe we had some echo going on, but hopefully that's cleared up. Apologize if that had happened. Um, how much time do you normally expect to spend validating the data that AI is generating for you when it asks you to work with your data? Um, Great question. And I think that kind of leads into some of the recommendations that we have. So I'm going to hit that as we go through this process. So I will come back to that. So a lot of the questions do stem from what's included in basic and premium. And so Herman, maybe you can walk us through some of that.
Yeah, so Copilot Basic and Copilot Premium are the two versions that we've mentioned. Some of the things that we did in those demos you can do with Basic, and some of the things do require a premium license. So with Copilot Basic, we have some things up there that you can do. So you can write a first draft of a policy, you can build an Excel formula, the cleanup of the data. That's something you can do with Basic. It creating tables from the data in that spreadsheet. That's something you can do with Basic. An example I like to give is say you have a meeting with a particular vendor or client tomorrow. If you share the latest proposal that you have for that client in Excel with Copilot, it can access the data that you're sharing with it and give you talking points for that meeting. That's something Copilot Basic can do for you right now, tomorrow, if you really wanted to. Copilot Premium, instead of you giving it the data that you wanted to prepare you for the meeting with, you can just tell it, hey, I have a meeting coming up with this vendor, this client tomorrow. Get me up to speed on Teams meetings, any emails, relevant documents, because Copilot Premium has 365 data access that your 365 user has access to. So Copilot Basic does not have that 365 data access. That's why it relies on you providing that data to it.
Yeah, I think thinking back about that new employee example for basic,
Mhm.
just like a new employee, that you got to keep prompting them along to get what you need, but they are able to help save some time by taking some of those tasks and doing it for you. But you really have to be in Excel and saying, work with this data. Versus premium, it's really kind of that more of that experienced executive assistant that has access to everything. I think that's a good way to kind of think about it. And so we'll get more into the recommendations, but we're seeing across our clients that they should be utilizing more of basic. And then there's going to be this point where you're wanting more. and you want better output and quality and you want it to be smarter, that's a good indication that that's a time to consider the premium add-on.
hmm And I just want to highlight that Copilot Basic does not have access to your 365 data. It only has access to what you give it, whereas Copilot Premium does have access to your 365 data. And we'll touch on that a little bit more in our next slides.
And so I did want to ground this back into the demonstrations that we just walked through. So when I, again, and I know Herman covered some of this, when I was in Excel and asking it to clean up and analyze this data, that's something that Basic could do. It's probably one of the things that you're not doing today that I want to challenge you to do because it's really powerful. The other things I'm in Word, help me rewrite this, all those types of things, or help me write or rewrite my email. All of those things are something that you can do in Basic. All the times I was going and saying, hey, I'm in Outlook, reference this document or this Word document, or the meeting that I had, all those types of things. That is the premium offering because think about it is that it's that executive assistant that has access to all the different things that I have access to. In addition, the Teams transcription, which is super powerful, and I think everybody could take advantage of. That is a premium offering. In addition to, I know if you create a PowerPoint, you're going to want to use your brand kit, your brand template. That is a premium feature. So just kind of coming back to the demonstration, and I know we mixed some of those through, and it can be confusing. Believe me, Microsoft hasn't made it easy on us to keep it simple. But I thought we wanted to show you kind of a couple of those workflows and kind of challenge you as we kind of get into our recommendations to, if you're not today, start with Basic. And if you're already using Copilot and you want more out of it, Premium is a good way to go.
So we've gone through a lot with the demos and just discussion of the topic. So the question you're probably asking yourself is, does this make sense for my organization? We have some considerations for you as a business owner, stakeholder to consider when evaluating Copilot. So obviously the big ones are cost and security and governance. So with Copilot Basic, it's included with your 365 business or enterprise license. Whereas Copilot Premium is a $360 per user per year license from Microsoft. There are some discounts out there for small to medium businesses and nonprofits, but that is a standard price from Microsoft per license. On security and governance, the major thing here is enterprise data protection. So that is Microsoft's policy on data protection. That applies to your just everyday use of 365, and it applies to Copilot Basic as well as Premium. So Microsoft states that they will not use your prompts or data to train any of their models. So the data that you're prompting with Copilot Basic is only being used in your tenant. Same with Copilot Premium. The thing to consider with Copilot Premium is more on the governance side of things, because as I mentioned, Copilot Premium has access to your 365 data that your user has access to. Now, there are things that you know you have access to, you use every day, but there may be some things out there that you don't know you have access to. So Copilot can reference those when you're prompting it in the premium version. So that is just something more to consider as an organization to really take a step back and assess where you're at with those permissions in SharePoint, OneDrive, and users in general.
Yeah. So there are a lot of considerations in terms of that. We know that ourselves and every business out there, it's really hard to make sure to say 100% guaranteed all of the information that we have stored online is in the right spot and somebody can't access it today. That's just the reality because there may be a file out there in a folder that you didn't know was out there, and you have to consider those risks. And so, but at the same time, there's ways to manage that risk. So one is doing a controlled rollout. So starting with some of the lower risk team members that have access to a lot of information, starting with them and testing with them, just to make sure that they, and doing testing on your own, because it's one thing for somebody to tell you, yes, you're secure and all your governance is in place. It's another thing for you to test it yourself. So those are things that you can control when you're doing more of a premium rollout. We almost always recommend starting with a small control group, a pilot group, and before you roll it out company wide. The other thing you can do is if there is that sensitive data, and we're often seeing HR information, compensation, financial information. There are risk assessments that you can perform that Lutz Tech can help with to do a review just to make sure that the information is locked down. Now, understand that there's effort and investment into that. So I would say starting with a smaller rollout and a controlled rollout with a pilot group, doing your own testing can get you farther. When you're looking at a broader rollout to your overall team, that's when you want to consider more of an assessment. But all of these considerations are we going to get benefit out of it? And I would say I work with AI across systems, whether or not it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude. We work with all of those platforms and help clients with those. The common thing that we're seeing is measuring benefit is looking at it objectively with things that we can measure is really hard to do right now because, we're really talking about breaking down these tasks. How long did this task take me? Did I take that half hour that I saved and reinvested it into another task? Those are really hard things for every business right now, including large businesses and all businesses alike. And the way I wanted to say this is you're going to feel it before you can measure it, but you can't feel it if you don't get started. So ultimately, what you're looking for is, am I feeling like we're seeing some efficiency gains in productivity? And ultimately, as a business, deciding with those time savings, are we reinvesting that into things that we couldn't get to without these tools? Are we reinvesting that in just becoming more efficient to get more work done? Or are we just reinvesting that time into quality of life of our team members? Those are all things that to consider. I wish we had the answer for you when it comes to that, but the reality is the reporting on this is still catching up. These enhancements are changing on a weekly basis at this point. They just keep rolling and coming faster and faster. So some of the reporting is still catching up, but I would expect that's a major focus of Microsoft and all the other platforms over the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, the next 6 months to a year, we can probably do this presentation again and it'll look much different.
We could give this presentation next month and have a whole lot of things to go through. I would say that regardless of all these enhancements coming out, these recommendations are going to be very similar. So, one, we talked about Copilot Basic quite a bit. I think it's underutilized. And I would say, given that it's right now available, and they call it an entitlement. So we cannot promise you that Basic is going to be out there for the long term. We can't. But we can say if you have access to it today, you should be utilizing it because it can just speed up some of those mundane tasks and also allow you to better understand how to use these tools to make Microsoft 365 better for you. So utilize Basic if you can, but there is going to be that point where you want more out of it. And so that is a really good time to consider the premium licensing. The second thing for small, mediums, this is my soapbox. I think AI is not going anywhere. It may slow down a little bit, but that is from a breakneck pace. Even if it slows down, I can say it's not going anywhere. And it's going to change the way that we work. So I want all small businesses to start the journey of better understanding how these tools can improve productivity and efficiency, how it can be used to offer things that you couldn't do because these AI tools have gotten so powerful, including Copilot. So start, the journey to prepare your organization for today, let alone the future. But the third thing is that I can tell you from Lutz Tech alone, and we manage our hours, and we've invested over 2,000 hours this year between our team members, just researching and trying to do our best to stay on top of this. So the reality is, from a business standpoint and leaders, you need to, one, you got to decide we're going to start our journey. Or two, if we've started our journey, what's our next step? But from, the reality of what's the right plan of attack to do this in a responsible way and to get the most out of it, you're realistically going to need help. And Lutz Tech is here to help answer questions, provide services where it makes sense. But you may have some additional team members who you need to task internally to say, we need you to get on top of this. But they're going to need that IT leadership and support. And so it's just the reality that this is moving so fast. We just encourage you to ask help versus, stalling too much and not taking progress towards the next steps. So with the last 5 minutes or so, we definitely wanted to pause and, make sure that we covered any additional questions. We'll have a few minutes here. Um, if
And
I'm you, I know that I can tell you in most webinars, we don't get these many questions. So it looks like we have great activity. If we don't get to you, we'll do our best to reach out to you. I would also say if you did not get to ask a question, we will have a survey that comes out just to see what you thought of the presentation today. In addition, it will allow you to reach out to us for additional help. So let me go through and just see if I can pick off some that would be good for the overall group. Um, let's see here.
and again, the webinar will be posted on the website, so that'll be out there for you or maybe some team members that you think would benefit from this.
There was a question about QuickBooks. How can we overlay some of that Copilot functionality with QuickBooks Online data? There's many different ways, but I would say a simple way is, some of the things we showed you with Excel. So exporting into a CSV or an Excel document that Copilot can help you clean up or analyze, or, especially with Copilot Premium, it can help you do tasks in Excel. Maybe you're trying to reconcile or you're trying to combine data in Excel. I can tell you, start the journey of utilizing that because it can become pretty powerful. The direct integration with QuickBooks Online is kind of where we're talking about more advanced kind of technology that we would need to talk about further.
And that's a good use case for Copilot Basic. You can get that export from QuickBooks Online, upload it to Copilot Basic, and have it clean up the data or analyze.
There was a question that says, if I have a premium license and I create an agent, can I share that out with others that have a basic license? And this is a great moment for us to go, I'm not 100% sure at this point. My um, educated guess would be no. But the reason we've had to be really comfortable with saying we don't know all the time, we could find out for sure. But the pace of the advancements and what they're offering in basic versus premium, I can tell you there's so much coming so quickly in the changes that we can't say that for sure. I can say the personal agents that you create with premium and sharing with other team members, that's a pretty good indication that you may be onto hey, thinking about the strategy of how we manage agents across team members. You may be at a point where there's some additional help that's needed. Let's see here. There's just a comment about, some of the Excel integration with Copilot and how it can save time and pay for it alone. For $360 per user per year, just kind of think about, I mean, how much time would a person need to save in order to make that back? And for much, it's not a lot.
Mhm.
It's probably less than you think. And so I do think that is definitely a consideration for return on investment.
And this come up in a couple of the questions with the installed versions of Office applications using Copilot there versus the web version of Copilot or Office applications. I think the recommendation from Microsoft is to use Copilot within the browser applications.
And let's see if there's anything else I can kind of hit. There was a question about AI use policies. And I would tell you one of the things that we're working on is trying to come up with a template that we can share. The challenge that we have is it quickly gets into legal and HR concerns there. I would recommend we do have a checklist that will help you think through the process of what should be included in your AI use guidelines. Primarily, it's around identifying what that sensitive information is that obviously you do not want to share externally, but more important, not more importantly, but just right up there is what information do you want is sensitive internally. And those are the types of things you can start to build policies around and guidelines. Again, we have a checklist. We are working on ultimately there's a template that we feel comfortable with sharing with our clients. We know it's a common request. I would say though, with AI, it is you most likely have a technology use policy today, and evaluating whether or not this is just, an addition to that existing policy is one of the considerations. because ultimately your team members are responsible for not doing personal things with your technology for business. What information is sensitive and your intellectual property. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's probably some attorneys online here that are going to come in and talk to us later. We are not giving you legal advice. I would just say that you do need to kind of consider those types of things when you look at what's right for your business. And the big disclaimer out there that whenever you're changing kind of policies, that is some things that have HR and legal considerations. So you need to rely on the professionals when it comes to that. I would say from a technology productivity standpoint and security standpoint, there's a lot of similarities in AI versus the other technology that you already have today. So I think we're right at time. We really appreciate the engagement. This is and the interest in this. Again, you'll be receiving that survey. That's another opportunity for you to reach out if you'd like additional questions. Thank you, Herman, for everything you've done on this, and then our marketing team with Riley. They did a great job. So more of this information to come.